Good evening. We're going to call to order the regular council meeting of Wednesday, May 15th. It is now 7 p.m. And I'm first going to ask councillors if there are any declarations of conflict. Councillor Toth.
Item 10.4, I'm a tenant of Trail Bay Properties, and I also do some work for their marketing committee, so I'll be stepping out for that one.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
I will be stepping out for 3.2 Sandy Hook Trail as one of the residents works with me.
Thank you. All right, so one more? Okay. Councillor Lamb.
I have to step out for 8.2 as I have property that could be used for cannabis production.
Okay, 8.2. Okay. Let me just make some notes here. Keep track of who's going where. All right, any others? Brenda, Matt? No. All right, so I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And we have two delegations tonight. Our first is Georgia Sear with Blissful Yoga Studio. Good evening. And push the button to turn the microphone on. Thank you. And you'll have 10 minutes. Thanks.
Great. Good evening. Thanks for having me here. I see lots of familiar faces in front of me, but I'm Georgia. I own Blissful Yoga in Sechelt. I'm going to keep this really brief because Julie wrote a pretty nice report about Pure Yoga, so I don't think I have too much to say, but just so you have some history, I opened Blissful Yoga Studio 7 years ago, almost to the day, in June of 2012, and I've been offering a couple of classes in the summer on Trail Bay Pier since the summer of 2014. I've shared yoga with kids from age 3 to people up to age 85 on the Sunshine Coast. In the last 7 years, over 2,000 people. So I've really reached out into the community. Who's changing my slides for me? Me? Oh, I have it right here. Do I have to point it at something? Oh, amazing. Great. So in 2014, actually one of my clients, a few of them came forward and said, you know what would be really amazing is if we could do yoga on this great waterfront that we have. And so I approached the district of Sechelt in the spring of 2014. I spoke to the CAO at the time, and under his instruction, I applied for a special events permit, and that was granted, and we had our first Pure Yoga sessions that summer. I've applied for the special events permit the last 5 years in a row and offered classes on the pier between July 1st and August 31st, weather permitting. So these are classes that are on my year-round schedule at the studio. I usually pick 2 or 3 classes that will be designated as Pure Yoga if the weather is in our favor. If it's not, the classes are held at the studio. For 2019, I'm proposing 2 classes, one in the morning that starts at 9:15 and one evening class that starts at 5:30. The classes are 75 minutes in length. I have always paid the rental fee to the District of Sechelt as well as a damage deposit, even though we tend to leave the pier in better condition than we found it. We pick up garbage and tidy up after other people. And at my place of business, I carry insurance, of course, but that extends to when I teach outside of my permanent place of business, and I have added the District of Sechelt as an additional assured, and I keep running my classes at the studio throughout the summer and throughout the year. Oh. There we go. When we use the pier, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what that space looks like, the pier is a large space, so if anyone hasn't been down there, it's quite a big space, and we tend to tuck ourselves away on one end of it and make sure that there's lots of easy access to the ramp that goes down to the dock, to the heritage signs that are there, to the different benches. We share the pier with everyone. So in the evening classes, there's usually a pack of kids down there swimming, which is awesome. There's often people fishing, there's boats coming and going, there's cyclists and dogs, and people who stop and sit on the benches to watch, or people who hop into the class briefly and snap photos of us. So it's we're very conscious of the community, but we also welcome it in. There's people coming and going at all times, and we're not in any way trying to take over the pier or make anyone feel like they're not welcome there. We let them come and share it with us. There we go. I think this photo says it all. We make Sechelt look really good. So I have people who come along the railing and I can just see them and they sit and they just watch, or people along the shore that just watch. So we're really a demonstration of, I think, what Sechelt wants to look like, which is a community that values vibrancy and health and wellness, and we're a part of that. And we're taking advantage of our waterfront, which is absolutely beautiful and I think needs to be used in ways, and this is a really low impact way that it can be used. I know that staff and council have received quite a few emails from the community in support of this. These are just 5 quotes that I've pulled from different communication that people have sent in, but it just highlights a few things. One of the main ones is that I have a brick and mortar business in this town that I run year round, and this is just augmenting what I'm already offering, and for, 75 minutes twice a week. I have people who come from all over the coast to attend these classes, and actually from all over the world. I think the furthest, I have a lady who comes from the Netherlands. She visits the coast every summer, and she comes to Pure Yoga every week when she's here. I have people coming from Gibson's who come to class, and then they do business in Sechelt. And I'm just enhancing people's health and wellness in this town. I think it's a good contribution to our community. The last thing I wanted to touch on was the fee structure. I read in the report that Julie Rogers wrote the fees for this year, which is fine. It's an increase to what I've been paying, but no worries. But I would ask if in future you're thinking of doing further increases, to just consider perhaps 2 different pay structures for people like me who are in the downtown core all year round and have the overhead of a business all year round, versus people who might just want to use the pier and don't have a permanent space. Right now it's quite affordable, so thank you for that. But if it was increased another 100%, it would quickly become cost prohibitive, because just because I'm outside on the pier doesn't mean I'm not still paying for my indoor space. So that would be my one ask in the future, if Pure Yoga is allowed to go ahead, and if there's future reviews of the fees, I'd appreciate that consideration, because I don't see why more people don't want to use the pier. I think it would be a popular thing. And yeah, I think it would just be nice for all the businesses in the downtown to have that consideration, because we are trying to support the vibrancy of our town, and sometimes it's challenging. That's it, short and sweet. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
I have one question first. What times did you say, 9:30 and 5:30?
9:15 for the
9:15.
morning class and 5:30. Yeah, I think this year I tend to go with what my clients want, and they want Tuesday morning and Wednesday night, so.
Okay.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the pictures to kind of show what the typical usage. I'm wondering, what is the maximum class size that you have, and if there's any possibility of taking up the whole pier?
It would be really unlikely. So in the 5 years that I've done this, I think the average is about 10 people. The biggest class size we had was 20, and that was when I was having someone come to photograph it, and so I put the word out that we wanted a big group. But yeah, typically it's 10 to 12.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And as you said, it'll come back up later on in the agenda.
Yes, I'm going to sit here and
Thank you.
listen.
Next delegation, Philip, and I don't know how to say your last name. Joie. Philip Joie, from Sandy Hook Property Owners.
Thank you.
And Janice, one
and-
second.
Yep.
Councillor Kuster's going to go find some place to hide out.
Thank you, councillors and staff, for agreeing to hear our delegation today. My name is Philip Chua, and I'm accompanied by a number of other of the Property Owners Association. I wanted to tell you a little bit about who we are. Myself, my family bought the cabin that we have here in 1972. I grew up on the coast every summer. The folks that are represented here today are the lots 83 to 91. Diana Mumford is also in the audience as well, and David Pye was unable to be here tonight. But as you can see, Sandy Hook Trail, it's a little bit to the south of Sandy Hook, and I've given a little bit of a blow up there so you can see, in fact, even a little bit of the trail there. I want to give you a little bit of history, councillors, because I think it'd be really good for you to understand what's been going on. This is the 1964 subdivision plan, and on it you can see a trail that was there, and that trail was actually, it's not a right-of-way, although I'll refer to it as a right-of-way, but it actually is now District of Sechelt property, and it cuts through all of the properties there. Just for ease, I've shown Diana Mumford's property there at the end, and all of us have used this trail for a number of years. In 1987, BC Hydro also sought and got from us all a right-of-way for the hydro that went in, and I'll show you in a little bit the other ones that have been there. The hydro poles kind of go back and forth, up and down through the right-of-way, but basically, what happened in the 1980s, before that, we had a water line that was just really strung through the trees. Literally, it was lying on the ground. And then in the mid-80s, in Lot 92, Mr. Miller built that trail that currently is there, that I'll refer to as the current trail. And he did that by just, I think, following the kind of line that would make the most sense for burying the water line at that time. And what that meant, though, was that it was not on the trail or the right-of-way that is actually part of the District of Sechelt. And so you can see there that trail is probably about 10 or 15 feet below where that trail was. And probably the reason was because the actual trail there is very rocky, and it would be probably impossible to put any kind of burying of a water line there. And this is a 2006 trail survey that was commissioned by the regional district to create potentially an upgrade on the water system. At that time, they were seeking to get a right-of-way for the water line because at that time there still wasn't a right-of-way for the water. They were able to get from us all, I think it's called an enter and construct form, and that allowed them to enter into the property, but they were going to come back with some easement to register against our property. Currently on our property, the only easement that's been registered is the hydro. So that was an interesting kind of aspect. They did do some substantial upgrading, and prior to them taking over the water line, that had been maintained by David Pye, who took over from the Millers in Lot 92. So fast forward to today, I'm going to show you, this is Diana's property. The parking lot on the left there, which is kind of indicated, oh, actually, I think I could have a little laser pointer. Woo! This property here is actually not Diana's property, even though it's shaded in that way. This is District of Sechelt property, and here you can see that trail, or what I'm calling that right-of-way, and then the current trail is below. And here's a picture that you can kind of see the exact kind of problem that we're facing right now, which is that right here is the current trail, and there you can see, and for the benefit of staff, you can see the way in which that the right-of-way or that old trail goes through. So the current issue right now is that for Diana, she's informed us that the liability of people walking along that trail is too high for her comfort, and she feels that her insurance won't cover any accidents. So she has told us that she's going to block the trail with boulders as of June 1st. And so again, because this area is so rocky, there's actually a little ravine below there. This area would be easily blocked, which would prevent us access from our property. BC Hydro, the SCRD, and other utilities do use the current trail for maintenance. And as well, the regional district has let us know that the water line is in need of repair and upgrading. And I know council has already addressed some of the issues with some of the water runoff, and that's created other issues with the water line. So there is a bit of a snarl there to try and kind of figure out. But good news, we feel like in all the discussions that we've had together, and Diana's here along with us, and that is that what we have as a solution is to propose a swap of land. So the idea would be to take the existing trail and that right-of-way and swap it for the current trail. This does have precedence in other municipalities. It has been something that has been done, and we would ensure that the same kind of area in terms of the size of the trail would be swapped in exchange. the good news is that all of the property owners, all 12 along Sandy Hook Trail, have agreed that this would be a solution that would address all the significant issues. One important note is that the current trail, or that right-of-way, is considered an undeveloped trail, as Paul Pelt has informed us, and we would still consider that the current trail, that swap over, would still remain undeveloped. And the importance of this would be that what we found out, and this is courtesy of our lawyer, who told us about the fact that there is municipalities have the ability to basically make a policy directive to allow a trail to be undeveloped, which would significantly address the liability issue in such that if somebody were to use the trail, essentially it would be at their own risk. And obviously as property owners, we would be happy to take that risk. Luckily, in the 50 years that we've been there, there hasn't been any accidents of that nature. So we would hope that there'd be another 50 years without accidents. But obviously, the fact that you would be able to address that liability straight with that kind of a motion apparently from council would be, I think, an important point to make. So obviously, that would allow all of us to continue to access that trail. And also allow the regional district to update the water line. Now, we've been in talks with the regional district, and we would still like to continue to find out exactly how that could happen and what that would be, because one of the important issues that we recognize too is that for the Sandy Hook area, the Sechelt Fire Department has often made the comment that it's an extremely dangerous area for fire, and so we all would love to have a water line that is upgraded to meet water safety standards. One other point that I'd make is in 1996, we actually, this was my mother, led to try and get a road built through there. Wasn't successful at that time. The previous owner before Diana wasn't interested in that road. But the point was that the SCRD had a plan before that to put an upgraded water line for halfway and then a smaller line continuing, which would be another way to address some of the water issues. That is really what our hope is. What would love to have council kind of address this situation if possible, but if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions by council? Hey, I have a question.
Okay.
You said other BC municipalities, you say they're second, the bullet on the right side there. So it says, other BC municipalities state the policy, it indicates they will not develop a specific trail which avoids liability. Do you have a list of who those?
I would love to get that for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is that's not necessarily the case.
I will look into that further. Yeah, and the advice that we received was from Wayne Rowe, who's our lawyer and was, as you know, was a former mayor of Gibson. So we're hoping that he had the insight that would be accurate, but you would know more than me. So I will try and find that information.
Okay, that would be definitely needed. Anything else? So what would council like to do? Typically, as I mentioned to you at the beginning, when we have a delegation come forward, we typically will refer it to staff, to look at the various points and be able to identify, for example, is there a liability for us if we were to do something like this, etc. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion that we refer this matter to staff for review. It's an interesting proposal. It could have merit. But could is the key word. I have no idea if this could work or not, and it will require, I think, a fair amount of study by staff to determine if this is a feasible solution. So,
yeah.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconder? Okay, any comments?
Could I make one recommendation? If with the directive to staff, could that also be to work in conjunction also with the SCRD? Because I feel like they're also highly motivated, as are we. We're very highly motivated to seek a solution, but it might be as well a group of us that might be able to, jointly propose something.
I think that's part of what we'll be looking at.
Okay, fantastic.
Just for your information and for the rest of the residents there, after the last committee, the whole meeting, 5 of us actually came and walked the trail. So we're very familiar with the trail. Okay?
Thank you.
We had Counselor Lamb was like a mountain goat. He was up there too.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, he went up the actual trail.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to move back through your slides a bit, there were those, those there, right there. So those pins, we saw those pins there. Was that your group that went out and?
Actually, that was
this?
Diana.
Diana, okay.
She wanted to confirm where the trail was.
Okay,
That was surveyed within the last month
yes,
by a survey company in Seychelles to indicate very clearly which is our private property, which is where the trail is,
yes.
and where the legal trail is.
Okay, and they just surveyed on your property then, did they? They didn't go beyond that?
Yeah, just across from my property.
Yes, yeah, because we saw they stopped a little ways in, yes.
I don't know if they could have gone much further because I don't think.
Counselor Lamb did. He was way up there.
My concern is that we cannot leave this any longer because it's putting us at liability, and so if it's going to a lengthy discussion, then we're going to have to shut it down because we're responsible for it. And that's what we've been insured, or we've been told by our insurance company, is that if somebody hurts themselves on it, we are responsible, and our insurance company will not cover us because we have not maintained that trail. So we're sitting duck.
All right. Any other questions of our presenter? Counselor Toth.
And I suppose this is as much a question for Diana as it is for you. If we do defer this back to staff for discussion around the liability and the feasibility of doing a swap or what have you, is that June 1st deadline still hard and fixed?
There is a couple of tenants that live on another piece of property that's not, Phil, can you go back to that first map, please? They live past 92, and their road into their place was shut. So they are now also coming out through that trail. And one of the people in there, the tenants, are moving out July 1st. And so I had discussions with them because they don't know how they're going to get their stuff out of their place. So I have promised them we will leave it open for them to be able to get their personal goods out. But this has been going on for 12 years, so our patience is near its end.
Thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Lamb.
I'd just like to say that it's, I think we really need to have staff give us some input on this, because it's one of those wild ones that comes up from over years gone by what we've done. So yeah, I think we need some good direction for this. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, so we'll refer it to staff and it'll come back.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so next on our agenda are proclamations. Thank you, gentlemen. So the first is Green Ribbon of Hope National Missing Children's Month, May 2019, and Missing Children's Day, May 25th, 2019. So whereas Child Find British Columbia, a provincial member of Child Find Canada, is a nonprofit registered charitable organization incorporated in 1984, whereas the mandate of Child Find British Columbia is to educate children and adults about abduction prevention, to promote awareness of the problem of missing children, and to assist in the location of missing children. Whereas Child Find has recognized green as the color of hope, which symbolizes a light in the darkness for all missing children, and whereas Child Find's annual Green Ribbon of Hope campaign will be held in the month of May, and May 25th is National Missing Children's Day. Now therefore, I, Darnelda Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that May 2019 shall be known as Child Finds Green Ribbon of Hope National Missing Children's Month. And I further proclaim that May 25th, 2019 shall be known as National Missing Children's Day in the District of Sechelt. And another one, favorite of our staff, Local Government Awareness Week, May 19th to 25th. Whereas community participation in local elections and voter turnouts are important, whereas community involvement in local government decision-making is essential to a healthy democratic system, whereas community understanding of local government operations and the services it provides is of primary importance to meaningful participation at the local level. Now, therefore, I, Darnelda Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that May 19th through 25th, 2019 shall be known as Local Government Awareness Week in the District of Sechelt. Thank you. Item 5.1, minutes of the regular council meeting of May 1st for adoption. Moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions? All right, all those in favor of adoption? Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? None. We'll move on to, we have no committee commission minutes. Move on to bylaws. So this is item 8.1. This is the zoning bylaw amendment 25-297-2019, 5664 Nickerson Road, West Sechelt. This is for Lawn and Webb. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And did you want to speak to this? Thank you.
Just very briefly, because there has been a number of presentations in front of you. So the recommendation from staff is to give this bylaw second and third readings. It's a fairly straightforward amendment of from RR1 to R1 to accommodate a guest cottage. And if there's any questions, be happy to answer them. Thank you.
All right. We have two recommendations in front of us. What is the appetite of council? Councillor Lamb?
I've just got some questions with regards to.
Okay. So we have two recommendations here. First, did you want to add questions with regards to the report?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm just under potential loss of existing trees that provide privacy for properties to the east. So does that mean that how do we deal with that? If the trees are on the property owner's property, I mean, I know they're just a shrubbery. I actually went up and had a look at the property, and the hedge is about 10 feet wide. Looks like there's two different types of trees. It looks like both neighbors have planted a hedge. And so, you know what, like if I was a property owner and if I wanted to plant a garden along there, or if I wanted to take the hedge down and to have more property there, could I put a fence up? I'm just wondering what this restricts us to here.
Are you referring to recommendation number 3 that's in our?
Oh, I don't know.
So recommendation number 3.
It's just under public hearing and other comments.
Yes.
It's just here.
But if you look at the recommendations right there at number 3, it's talking about registering on title a covenant requiring the protection of the existing trees, and that if they remove them, they have additional landscape screening provided.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I just don't agree. I don't, prior to adoption. Yeah, I'm just struggling with that because, you know, so once, like I did go up there and have a look at it, and there's 3 cedar trees on the property, and they're probably, I don't know, they're probably 2 feet at the butt. They're probably about 30 feet high before they come into what they call a school marm, where there's multi-tops on. And so the trees are, you know, the trees, I mean, the reality, you're sitting right on a, in the back is a strata title property. And like school marms I'm not an arborist, but I know that in a storm, like a school marm will separate off the tree if you had a big storm. I'm trying not to be a fear monger here, but you know, the trees on the property there's no value except for aesthetics, but you know, they have to be dealt with somehow. The hedge on the east side, it's I just think that you know, if I'm just kind of, I think we're infringing on somebody's rights here, and we do. For me, I think we just do too much of that as a government. So I guess number 3, existing trees with replanting or additional landscape screening to be provided. I mean, if the property owner, if you're not happy with the guy taking his trees down that are on his property, then you should build a fence, I guess. You know, and then maybe come to an agreement and put with your neighbor and do a friendship fence, or plant trees again. So I just don't see how we can register something on title. I just struggle with it a bit. So very good.
All right, any other comments before we move forward? Councillor McLean?
Okay, I'm going to try and clarify some of Councillor Lamb's comments a little bit. There are 3 large trees on that property, and then there's some hedging in the back. Are we talking about the 3 large trees here, or does it include the hedging? The 3 large trees. That's what we're talking about for that covenant. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions before we move this forward one way or another? All right, so we have recommendation 2, that zoning bylaw amendment 25-297 2019 be given 2nd and 3rd reading. Would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll move recommendation 2.
Is there a seconder? Seconder for that. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor? Thank you. And would someone like to make recommendation 3 or not? Sounds like Councillor Lamb won't. Would anybody like to make recommendation 3? No appetite for recommendation 3. Okay, so let's move to the zoning bylaw. This is on page 31. So if we didn't move that recommendation, is there anything in the bylaw that needs to be adjusted? Okay. All right, so this is bylaw number 25-297, 2019, Lawn and Webb, Nickerson Road, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25, 1987. So I'd look for someone to move 2nd reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And 3rd reading? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Lamb, I believe you'd like to recuse yourself. So this is item 8.2A on page 33. Zoning bylaw amendment number 25-288-2, 2019, cannabis. First motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And over to staff.
Thank you, Worship. So I'm just going to go through some of the issues that we were changing and some of the concerns that came through on public hearing. So as mentioned, here are some of the, one of the things the bylaw does is change a number of the definitions, mainly to catch up with the terminology in, under the federal and the provincial regulations. So a lot of it was just changing the marijuana to the cannabis. The licenses no longer differentiate between medical and non-medical, so we've dropped that, that reference there. I will mention too, there is one error in the bylaw, so it needs to be amended before it is passed, and that is in section 327 under cannabis microproduction. I have it listed as also in RR2, and it is not on the production. The microcultivation is. So that is one thing that needs to come out. And the reason for that is because it is not a farm use, and so it's a different structure. So I think it's on the list.
Page 320, or section 327.
Section 327, under micro production.
Okay, microproduction. So page.
Thank you.
Okay, I just pulled up the one that was in the, was it corrected in the one that was at the hearing? Okay. You said RR2?
So under section 327 on micro production.
Yes.
To remove the RR2 and leave the industrial ones under there.
Yeah, I don't think we're looking in the right place here. What page is that on in our package?
It's right at the very top. It says cannabis microproduction is permitted in designated rural and industrial. It's not in rural.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So just the, okay, rural has to come up, because I'm looking for the RR2, and it's, RR2 is not in there.
Yeah.
Just the word rural and, okay. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. The concerns that came in, and there weren't many, but they were around separation distances. So with the current bylaw that we have for medical marijuana, so nothing under cannabis retail and no provisions under the micro facilities production and cultivation, because we weren't dealing with that. But under the cultivation production, it had much higher setback requirements. And what we have proposed were simply to leave in the 50 meters from the lot line, and then on production to reduce it to 100 meters from residential and 150 from school. So if that would be the areas in the bylaw that could possibly change. So the considerations for council in moving this forward is whether the separations for cannabis retail, those are in alignment with the policy that was already approved, so we'd need to alter both. The separation distances for production and cultivation are limited to 150 meters from schools. It was 1,000 meters. 500 meters from developed park, 50 meters from any lot line in ALR, and 5 for industrial. The issue around the 500 and not so much the 1,000, I think part of the ALR in West Sechelt is within 800, because we were measuring that for Brickers, and I think it's around that. So it would affect some of those parcels. The 500 meter from developed park essentially sterilized most of the industrial area off Sechelt Inlet Road because of the proximity to the park at the Ani development. So our concern here was that that's the right area for a lot of these uses, and our separation distances were eliminating that. So there's a desire to accommodate. We'd prefer to see it in that area. On minimum lot sizes, we had 5 hectares in the ALR cultivation. That was initially thought that we couldn't regulate on that. We can under this, so if there's an appetite to bring that back, we certainly can. And the 4,000 meter for production and industrial is already in there. Okay, so there is that. So our recommendations and options for council is to give it second and third reading as presented, to modify any of the provisions in the zoning bylaw, and then give second and third reading to the amended bylaw, or to refer it back for any modifications as directed, or to deny the proposed amendments. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd look to the corporate officer first. With that wording change in the bylaw, how do we proceed with that?
Your worship, when council considers the readings of the bylaw in a moment or two, you could just pass a resolution being specific around what amendment you'd like to see, and then give it second reading as amended, and then just go on with third reading.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council to staff on the report? Councillor Toth.
The maps that we've seen previously outline around Seashelt Elementary and West Seashelt Elementary, and it was brought up during the public hearing about the alternative school. Does the alternative school fit within the definition of school? No?
Through the chair. We hadn't, if it is a requirement under the school district, it would fall, and we get the next one. Within the 150, if we took 150 meters from there, it would eliminate pretty much all of them. So we weren't clear if that was actually part of school district in elementary, but that would be the concern on that.
Right, okay.
Councillor McLean.
Yeah, so that new information, I think unfortunately we kind of all forgot about the alternative school, and in my mind, that is 100% a school. And that presents us a challenge with the bylaw as written. So it is quite close to one of those locations. It's quite close to all three. I want to bring this back to staff and see if there's a way that we can change 150 meters buffer to protect the area immediately to that school, but also incorporate the existing locations. So that would get away from a strict 150 meter buffer. If people are following what I'm trying to propose. So something, yes, a completely different structure for setbacks from around schools.
And staff response?
Through the chair, so an option might be on that is essentially a notwithstanding clause into the bylaw that says it's 150 meters from the elementary and secondary schools, notwithstanding, and we can do the legal on that address would be a setback of whatever you think is reasonable in there. So that would be an option.
Okay, well, we need to refer that back to staff before we go on to second reading at this point then?
If council's not sure at this point whether you're ready to read it the way it is, and it sounds like you need more information, then that would be my recommendation, to refer it back to staff for further report to have it come forward with your questions answered.
Okay, and given we're doing that at this point, would that also trigger then a further public hearing?
Depending on, at this, it's premature at this stage to answer that for sure, because it almost depends on what comes back and what, okay. For example, if the boundaries were going to change around that map, then possibly yes.
Okay.
We'd have to include that in the staff report.
All right. Councillor McLean.
I'll make that motion to refer this matter back to staff to to consider a notwithstanding clause around the alternative school.
Thank you. Seconder? Any other comments? All those in, sorry? Oh, any other amendments? We'll do this one first and then we'll see what else. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, any other amendments that came out of the information that we've gotten to date?
I'll just go back on some of the changes that were made, because if there is a desire to alter any of them, it would be advantageous to do it in the same one. So if there were any alterations that you wanted in either the separation distances for production and cultivation or anything added in terms of minimum lot sizes, we could do that.
I'll say that given the very low turnout we had at our public hearing, there doesn't seem to be concern in the community about what we're doing. So I'm perfectly okay with what you've drafted and brought forward, and I thank you for all the work you've done on it. No other changes? Let's move on. We need to get Councillor Lamb. Thank you, Mr. Parfit. So let you get in and find your page. We're on page 52. This is zoning amendment bylaw number 25-298, 2019, R3 zone, minimum lot area for new subdivisions for second and third reading. First of all, motion to receive the report. Moved. Seconded, all in favor of receipt? Thank you. And did you want to speak to this one? We had the public hearing just before this meeting. It's pretty much just a housekeeping matter that's changing, so there's clarity within the R3 zone, which lot sizes can be used on community sewer and which ones septic. So it's 2,000 square feet and 2,000 square meters and 900 square meters. 2,000 square meters for septic, 900 square meters for community sewer, municipal service. Okay. So we have a recommendation that the zoning amendment bylaw number 25-298, 2019, R3 zone be given second and third readings.
So moved.
And seconded. All in favor? Thank you. So let's move to that bylaw. That's on page 54. Item 8.3B, bylaw number 25-298, 2019, R3 zone minimum lot area for subdivision, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25, 1987. And we've had public hearing. I'm looking for someone to move second reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And third reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. And we're moving on to item 8.4A. This is fees and charges bylaw number 575, 2019. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor of receipt. Thank you. And Mr. Curry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Someone's moved the table closer. My report today proposes...
Like being that close to us?
My report today proposes updating the fees and charges for finance administration, RCMP administration, and both planning, development application fees at the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole from April 24th. The draft fees and charges bylaw has been included with the report. It includes a repeal of bylaw 333 from 1998. The update includes new increased fees to bring fees in line with the cost for providing the district services. In order to fully recover the costs associated with administration, development, planning, and related services, this is recommended that the fees and charges bylaw 9575 be adopted. For clarification, on page 106 of the agenda package, the RCMP fees, there's the chart is just missing the bottom of the sentence where it says police information checks. It's missing previously titled criminal record check, and another one on page 110 for planning refunds. It says withdrawn in writing by the applicant. If there's any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, so further on page 110, that's under refunds, the first one, says withdrawn in writing by the applicant within 30 days of something.
Sorry, I had that written down and my...
It went away.
Of submission.
Of submission, okay. Okay, any questions of Mr. Curry? Councillor Toth.
I just want to clarify that the minutes and agenda printing no longer shows up in here at all.
That's correct. We removed them as they showed up with no charge, and was decided from the Cal meeting that they'd be considered no charge. So a few of the no charge items have been removed. Just they were more for the purpose that the service exists, and it was acknowledged at the committee meeting, where we've kept some items for no charge because they would set up the following fees. So for instance, with the tax certificates, we have no charge for residents for their first request for a tax certificate. However, the following request for a tax certificate in the same year would require a charge. So that's the case where you would see the no charge still in the tables, and the other ones have been removed.
Questions? So we have a motion before us to do 3 readings on this bylaw. Someone would you like to move that recommendation? No. Councillor Toth?
I'll move recommendation.
Okay, and so I'm looking for a seconder for that recommendation. All those in favor? Thank you. I've been silenced. You've been silenced, okay. So we move to item 8.4B on page 98. This is bylaw, fees and charges of bylaw 575, 2019, and it's listed on page 89. It's a bylaw to establish rates, fees, and charges for District of Sechelt municipal services. So I'd look for someone to move first reading. Moved and seconded. You can do that without a mic, or you have a mic that works now. Moved and seconded. All in favor of first reading? Thank you. Second reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And third reading. Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments anybody wants to make at this point? I want to thank you for the work that you've done. This has been a lot of work, and back and forth. And
Thank you. There'll be more coming soon.
okay. All right, all those in favor of third reading? Thank you. We move on to item 10.1, and, oh, this one you're staying in for, right? Sorry, let me get to the 10.1. Okay, item 10.1, this is a request for rental of Trail Bay Pier. A motion to receive the report, please. Moved and seconded, all in favor of receipt? Thank you. And did you want to speak to this? I could. Now you need a microphone. Thank you.
I'm not sure there's an awful lot to say about this. I think having yoga on the pier is part of what you've all been talking about, activating downtown, revitalizing our downtown, bringing people downtown. It's good for our community. The problem with it is that we lease the pier, it's not ours. The province owns the pier, we lease it from them. It says in our lease, you can't sublease. So I have approached the province and said, you know, I know what you meant, but did you mean yoga? Because I think what they mean is, they don't want us putting a restaurant on the end of the pier. So they have their senior authorizations officer is looking at my request. So should the province allow this kind of activity on the pier, I recommend that we allow it for this year by council resolution, and that will give me some time to have a look at bylaws and policies and processes and put things into place. I thought Georgia's suggestion that we give people who have a local business license a break is a brilliant one, and maybe we should. So that will give me some time to put together a proposal and the proper bylaws and policies and things for council to consider for the next season. But if we could get a council resolution to allow her to operate for this season, I think that's good for our community.
Any questions? Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I'll move recommendation 2 and 4, no 3, the way it's written.
Okay.
I'm moving recommendation 2 and 4.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor McLean. And would anybody like to speak to this before we vote? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this. While we move forward, I'd want to explore how we can further open up access to these facilities in a fair and transparent way. So hopefully we'll get more varied groups using the pier, but for now we'll allow this one to continue their program for 2019.
Thank you, Councillor Toth.
I too will be supporting it. I did have just one question out of the report, though. Special event bylaw update lists special events can only happen in the following locations: Hackett Park, Kinnickinnick, near the concrete pad at Davis Bay, Block 7, and then Rockwood. Mission Point Park, not allowed?
Yeah, you're going to see the special events bylaw coming to you at the next COW meeting. Hopefully, if we get it all done. Yeah, our special, our bylaw currently tries to do too many things, and it's not, it doesn't allow us to have a Canada Day parade. So, so we're looking at all of those bylaws right now. You'll see something coming soon.
Thank you. I know there are other locations as well, like we've been talking about, like on the walkways, for example, and different kinds of things. Perfect. All right, any other comments? Councillor Kuster.
I'll be supporting this as well. I think what George is doing is what we need in our community, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Congratulations. Item 10.2. This is Sunshine Coast Natural History Society sublease agreement. A motion to receive the report. Moved.
Somebody?
Seconded.
It's the only way we can keep them.
All those in favor of receipt of the report? Thank you. Mr. Schmidt, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council. What we're asking here is to extend the existing lease with the Sunshine Coast Natural History Society for an additional 20 years. There is a fairly significant change to the lease where we would see that the maintenance and care of the park or the Seashell Marsh becomes the responsibility of Seashell Parks, and that would allow the Sunshine Coast Natural History Society to concentrate on stewardship and education. So you have the report in front of you, and I did want to go and do a little bit background information on here that this all stems from a request from the president of the Natural History Society, Tony Greenfield, last year, asking that for help, that they don't feel that they are capable of doing the maintenance and safety improvements that that park requires, and that resulted in a report that went to council last June and has been included in this presentation. So I'm opened up to any questions.
First of all, page 147, under discussion. Could you address the...
Can I see that? Yeah, that's interesting, because the report that I have and the report that was stamped by the senior management was correct. So I'm not sure how that gremlin got in there, but it should read, the Nature's Trust Society of BC purchased the Seashell Marsh property in 1979, and the rest of it is correct. They leased it to the District of Seashell for a period of 99 years, and in 1999, the Sunshine Coast Natural History Society was granted a sublease for a 20-year period, and that's the lease that's up at the end of the month, and we're hoping to extend for another 20 years.
Right, so when I read this, it was that the Natural History Society bought it, leased it to us, and we leased it back to them.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any
So
sense.
I was a little confused.
I'm really curious how that happened.
Okay, a couple of questions I had on this. One was about taxes.
Right.
Property taxes. What happens with property taxes on this? Because one of the clauses in here is that the subtenant pays property taxes and our insurance.
Well, the Seashell Marshes provided a statutory property tax exemption through the 99-year lease from the Nature's Trust to the district, so there aren't any tax requirements. The property is actually classified as recreation nonprofit, and so there aren't any taxes.
And then the insurance piece, do we know?
The insurance piece is the Sunshine Coast Natural History Society will continue to carry the insurance.
Okay. Okay, any other questions about this? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I actually went for a walk down through there the other day, and it's kind of cool to see all the little babies running around in there right now. They're all, they're all huddled up, and it's kind of cool. And once again, it's one of these things in the District of Seashell. Here's a property that's bought, given to Seashell and then leased to the District of Seashell and then leased back. And I'm just wondering, like, with the Water Resource Committee being formed, this sheds a different light on it, where the way this thing's set up. But if with the Water Resource Committee being set up, I would have liked to have seen us hold off for a year to see what the committee, if they have some input, or if they have some interest, or just if there's part of the marsh that would be incorporated into what the committee looks, direction that they go in. But when you look at that context and background, it changes the whole thing. But I once again, if we go with this 20-year lease, I would like to see, I'd like to see the Water Resource Committee be able to, participate in what goes on, or at least, help with direction. Let's put it that way. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor McLean?
So given that we are now maintaining the park, or the area, why is this not a full park like all of our other parks in the District of Seashell? What is holding us back from doing that?
The property is owned by the Nature's Trust. I imagine we could do an application to have it officially named a park, but for me, everybody calls it a park. A rose is a rose, and it's known as a park. It's listed as a park in almost every publication we have, and in fact, it's probably one of our most used parks. I was there today meeting with Director Barry Pruden as Fortis is coming to do a big volunteer maintenance cleanup, and I just couldn't believe the amount of people that were using the park, and this was at 10:15 this morning. And there were families there, there were elderly, there were couples, and it might be attracting a little more attention because of all the baby ducks and goslings, and it really is a special time of year down there. But I don't think I've ever been gone to that park, there again, I'm calling it a park, to the Seashell Marsh without encountering somebody walking the trails or sitting on the benches. So to answer your question, I think it is a park. So if we wanted to pursue it officially becoming a park, we would have to do it through the Nature's Trust.
Because we don't currently own it.
We don't own it. It was the Nature's Trust that had the foresight to buy that precious piece of property back in 1979 and give the District of Sechelt a 99-year lease. So they, by the way, are very been given copies of this renewed lease and have given their approval. That was all part of the requirements in the lease, that they are fully aware of the continuing relationship with the Sunshine Coast Natural History Society, and they will be visiting the marsh for perhaps the first time in many years coming this July.
Any other questions? What's the will of council? Councillor Toth?
I'll move recommendation 2.
And is there a seconder? Okay, so recommendation 2 is that the sublease agreement between the District of Sechelt and the Sunshine Coast Natural History Society be renewed for a 20-year term for the stewardship of the Sechelt Marsh. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. And I have to say, I have to comment. Council recognized that at the beginning of this meeting, this would be your last council meeting with us. You've got 2 more weeks on the job, but this is your last council meeting here. So publicly, we'd like to thank you. You've done amazing work in the community.
Thanks very much.
You've left a legacy.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you, and you'll be missed. Thanks.
I think I'm blushing.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to item 10.3, development variance permit. This is Brookmere Investments, development variance permit 5409 Selma Park Road. A motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. I'll turn it to staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a development variance permit. It's fairly minor. The reason these always come to you, it's not delegated and cannot be. So all development variance permits come before you. In this particular case, the applicant is wanting to build a staircase along the side of the house. That always was his intent. It didn't show up in some of the plans that came forward. So he will require a variance permit to go into the side yard setback. The required setback is 3 meters. The result would be, from this variance, would be 1.91 meters, so a difference of just over 1 meter variance. Staff are supporting it. It went through the 100-meter notification process. We don't see any negative impact associated with this, so we are recommending approval of the development variance permit.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Toth.
It's not totally clear on here. This is the east side of the property?
Yes.
Okay. Did we end up hearing from the direct neighbor at all?
We didn't.
Okay.
No, didn't have any concerns.
That's all I had.
Any questions, comments? Okay, so there is a recommendation. Would someone like to make that recommendation as presented?
I'll move recommendation 2.
Your mic works. So recommendation 2 is that council approve development variance permit 2019-04 for Evan B. Tate, Brookmere Investments, Inc. for a property located at 5409 South Park Road, Lot B, Blocks 1 to 4 and 60, District Lot 1329, Plan 15460. Is there a seconder? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. And Councillor Toth, I believe you wanted to leave for the next one. This is item 10.4, Trail Bay Center Development Permit 2019-04, 5755 Cowrie Street, Sechelt Village. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And Ms. Corbett.
Thank you, Your Worship. The item in front of you is a form and character development permit for one section of the Trail Bay Mall. It's essentially at the corner of Cowrie and Trail. It is essentially a minor development permit, but it did create some issues through APC, and there were some public profile on it, so I've brought it before council. It was addressed at the Advisory Planning Commission. They had concerns with the initial proposal, the picture of which is in your report, concerned around the compatibility with the rest of the mall, as well as the alignment with the development permit area guidelines. So I do want to recognize that the APC provided really good input on this, and I'd also acknowledge the responsiveness of the applicant and the tenant to make the changes that were required. I think the result is very good, and we've heard from APC recently. I sent it to them. They're really pleased with it, and so staff are recommending approval of the development permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I attended the APC meeting where this was first brought forward. I think this new version addresses a lot of the concerns that they have, and I think this will be a great addition to Sechelt.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. I'm looking forward to this. Thumbs up? Okay. All right. So there's a recommendation that the development permit 2019-04 be approved, subject to the elevation drawing A301 and rendering prepared by JS&A Habitable Art. Now, does that actually then refer to the revised, like it's clear in the, okay. Gets attached to the development permit, okay. And what would council like to do? Moved. Seconded. Any other comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Congratulations. Did he go to get Councillor Todd? You went to get him? Okay, thanks. You bet. Item 10.5, page 186. This is Ford Development Variance Permit 6231, Sitka Road. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And Ms. Corbett.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is another development variance permit. The issue with this one is there was a measuring pin that was misplaced when the property was being, when the house was being developed. It's a single detached home, so in order to bring it into conformance with the zoning, it does require a development variance permit. It is very minor. It is moving the side yard setback requirement from 3 meters to 2.63 meters to deal with that relocation. It's very minor. We have received no input on this. The house is built, and so we are recommending approval. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? What would council like to do? Councillor Kuster?
I'll move recommendation number 2.
Okay, recommendation 2 is that council approve the application for a development variance permit 2019-01 for a single detached residential property located at 6231 Sitka Road, Strata Lot 9, District Lot 1556, Plan EPS 467. Is there a seconder? Seconder? Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Getting there. 10.6. This is on page 191. Housing Needs Assessment Grant Application. motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Thank you.
This report is seeking a resolution for support for an application for a grant. It is through the New Housing Needs Report Program through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. In the coming years, it will be a requirement that municipalities have housing needs assessments done. So this provides a really interesting and fairly lucrative opportunity to move forward on the housing needs assessment. We have had some staff meetings with the regional district and with Town of Gibsons, and so the requirement here is that we would move forward with a joint application, and the Town of Gibsons has very charitably volunteered to put the application together, and they will be able to apply for, receive it, and move it forward. So the recommendations are that council support the application, and that council direct staff to work in partnership with the regional district and support the Town of Gibsons to apply for the grant. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the deadline for this is the end of the month. Okay, so I'd have one question on that. I know that I've heard that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is in support of this as well. It has not come up there, and I haven't seen it on an agenda yet. We'll need to ensure that it either comes forward prior to that, right? Or what would happen to the third recommendation on here if we were to work in partnership with them and they don't actually come on board for some reason?
Just to clarify, you mean if they just didn't agree to?
Yes, well, they'll have to pass a recommendation, I think.
They have to pass a recommendation. My understanding is it's coming next week, I believe.
Okay, I'll watch for it then. Okay,
so
good.
Yeah, I think they're trying to bring that item on, so I think they will be able to deal with it. If the decision was that the regional district did not want to do that, Gibsons is going to move forward anyway, and we have had some discussion of would it make sense for the two of us to go together. So we can do some last minute finagling if we need to.
Yeah, I anticipate it's going to come forward there, and I'll just watch for it. We'll sit at that table and we'll watch for that to come through. If not, we'll make sure it comes through. Okay, perfect. No, I like to see this. I know we took the lead here on the daycare needs assessment, and now Gibsons is taking the lead on this. It's nice to see the staff at the various municipalities working together. It goes a long way. So any questions, comments? Councillor Toth.
Is the Sechelt Nation doing their own thing? Are they not opting to participate in this? Do we know?
Through the chair, there has, the regional district was going to follow up with that rather than Sechelt. We know just through the data that we can supply them with the information they need. The consultant would gather it because the sources that we're using can cover that. It would be different if we were moving into more of strategy. It would be important to have more involvement, but there have been some discussions, and so they may on that, and we would reflect that in the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm really looking forward to this. I think we all know that housing's a challenge, and to be able to put data to it and be able to quantify some of the challenges that we are facing, I think will really help us move forward. So I'm excited.
Any other questions, comments? I like this as well. It's come at a really optimal time. We're setting up our housing committee. This will help inform that over the next while, and then we can look at how we can do the implementation. So it's really timely. All right, so there are two recommendations that are made. One is that we support the application, and that the other is that we work in partnership with the other governments. Someone like to make that recommendation, those recommendations? Councillor McLean, both 2 and 3?
Yep.
Is there a seconder? Okay, any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, so we're on to reports from councillors. So we're going to start at the far end and work our way down the table. Councillor Kuster.
Okay, about a week ago, I guess, we attended a tour of the Salish soils, and we got to see the great work and commitment they have to recycling organics, and I just think they're a great community advocate. I also attended my first APC meeting as a council liaison, and was really impressed with the group that's there. Looking forward to, more meetings. They bring good ideas, think outside the box, and ask good questions and ask questions that didn't think of. So I was really impressed with the meeting. Look forward to more of that. And we also had lunch with the Sechelt Nation Chief and Council and just collaborated and listened to what they were up to, and thought that was really valuable. Thank you.
Councillor Lamb.
Well, I attended a meeting with regards to cannabis with basically all the councils, and on the coast here, and there was the RCMP were there, Vancouver Coastal Health, the school board, and anyways, it was just an information meeting and just trying to understand more of what it is in our community and how we have to deal with it. Went to the East Porpoise Bay APC meeting the other day, and it was really a really good group to be invited to sit down and talk with, and I guess their number one concern was water, and how do we, how can we get meters for Sechelt? That was one of their concerns, or how do we even understand how we control water or restrict the use of it. They were concerned about the Harbor Authority and derelict boats. As from where we were sitting, we could see a whole bunch of them. And one of their concerns was stopping the derelict boats before they get here, I guess. We talked about affordable housing, Airbnbs. We had a good discussion on that, and it was just how do you welcome Airbnbs into your community? They're a business, so is there a way of taxing them more? They use more water, they use more garbage, they use more of your infrastructure. So it's just a really good discussion about that. And then today I had I had a private tour of the Water Resource Center and the Dusty Road Complex. So it was really, for me, it's kind of one of my passions, and I enjoyed our head of engineering, Darwin, took us there, took me through and introduced me to Christine, the manager there at the plant, and it was really, the staff's really good over there. They're really working hard, and they are interested to see, they're welcoming to see the input from the council to see a direction, and they want to move ahead. They want to see this Water Resource Center become what it should be, and it should be, a world-class facility, and it should be, an economic stimulator for our community. And I guess the only disappointment in the whole thing is when I drove up, I was a little bit early, so I just walked around the facility. I'm going, oh, the lawn's cut, that's kind of cool. But the gardens in front of the place need a little bit of work. And Yeah, so I spent about 10 minutes pulling weeds and alders out of the ground, just, doing, and then they phoned, where are you? Where are you? So, but anyway, so it'd be really nice if there'd be a way to, if there'd be a way to send a couple of people over there to, to clean up the mess that I left, but also to clean up, just to tidy it up, because it sure make the staff, just make them feel like somebody cared a little bit. It doesn't take much, but I do kudos to the staff over there. They seem to be on task, and they want, how can we make it better? And they're, they mentioned the financial support and the support they're getting from the CAO, which is very important, very important. And so that's that. And then I spent a day at the regional district, and we were in the planning and development, community development committee. So we talked about short-term rentals, and so that's going to the public hearing on June 18th at the Seaside Center. And what is it? Planning, looking at a better way to consult with provincial government and citizens who will pay for it. But that's Henry's. Yeah. Oh, that was with regards to BC timber sales, and it was, trying to get information out there to, to have a little bit better public process, but who pays for that, and so they were going to consult with the provincial government to see who would, if they could get the province or BC Forest Service to pay for that. Invasive species, we were looking at making people more aware of what an invasive species is and how can you dispose of it. So, and then the Chinook Swim Club has, come to the SCRD looking to get more access to the pools, and it's actually interesting because Christine from the Water Resource Center, her daughter is a national class swimmer, and so it was kind of cool because she drove me up to Dusty Road, and we just got talking about our kids, and so it was interesting. So anyways, we talked about the swim club and the amount of time they need, and so it's cool. It's good that the regional district is working with that club to get them the time they need. So well, that's me. I'm finished.
All right, thank you, Councillor McLean.
That was quite a report. It's a whole lot longer than mine. I have nothing to report.
You went on a bike ride today.
I did lots, but nothing to report.
Okay, Councillor Rowe.
I don't have much to report either, but I will say that our field trip we went on after Committee of the Whole up to Sandy Hook, I thought was great. I'm such a visual person. Any chance that we have that we can get out and see what people are concerned about, I'm so glad that we all could do that. And then after you guys ditched us, Matt and Alton and I went all the way out to Tawanek. And it was such a beautiful day. And so we had a look at a few things that people have been talking about. So that was great. I really appreciated that. And there was something else on my brain that has absolutely escaped me. Matt and I attended the AGM for the community forest the other night, which was interesting as well, but also mortifying. Dave Lasser did a great presentation on operations. And so he talked a lot about the illegal firewood trade and the amount of garbage that is dumped in our forests. And he had some horrendous photos of representing both. And I know there are some young people out there, some older friends of my boys that are involved in going in there with their machines and cleaning up, which I've, extended my gratitude to them. But I don't know, that's just out there, I don't have an answer of what to do, but I can't believe that people actually go by the dump and throw their garbage over the berm and think that they've thrown it away, and there really is there's no away. Away is no place. So anyways, that's about it. Thanks.
Councillor Toth.
Just before I get into my report, I'm actually going to mention that the tax notices should be coming out soon, and they all include spring cleanup coupons. So there is no excuse not to go to the dump. It's been a fairly quiet couple of weeks for me, which has been good. I've been madly working on getting my classroom ready. I attended a meeting this morning with stakeholders in our community about renewal of the farmers market lease and discussions around concerns or changes, etc. Really, that's all I've got to report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I've checked off all the things you guys have mentioned, so I'm not mentioning those. I had the opportunity to attend the 2963 Seaforth Highlanders annual review. There's a small contingent of members here on the coast, and I think it's ages 12 or 13 to 19, and then they age out. So there's only like 13 of them or something, but they had the pipe band come up from Vancouver. So we were at the gym at the high school, and the pipe band led them in, and then they did their marching around, and every time they'd march, the pipe band would do their little thing. It was really quite thrilling. And we gave out awards. I actually gave one out for the District of Sechelt. I didn't know I was giving an award, but my name was in the agenda. So I asked them and said, yes, I was. They gave out quite a few awards, and the recipients didn't know ahead of time that they were getting these. So they were quite surprised. One of the commander's daughter actually aged out this year. So this was her last session. They actually moved up the review a couple of weeks, because if they wouldn't have, she wouldn't have been able to attend the last session. So it was quite a lot of fun. Hike for Hospice. I went there and represented the district. Hospice Society, as we all know, does amazing work in the community. I come from big families. My mom and dad both had lots of brothers and sisters, so we've used hospice a lot over the years. And it's a service that we don't have enough here of, and they're looking at how do they expand that. So the more word we can get out in the community about hospice and their need for hospice services will help all of us as we get to that age. Sechelt Chamber Breakfast. First one that I spoke at, 6 months, it was talking about where are we now, 6 months in? What have we done in the last 6 months and what's coming up? It actually was a great opportunity to stop and look back. And what I did say in the speech that I gave, and there were some of the councillors were there, was that we actually have to do that every once in a while, because we really can get our head down and just focus on what it is we're working on, but we need to step back and look at where are we? What have we done? And then we can recognize that we've actually moved forward, but also then can focus on where we're getting to. So it was a good turnout. Look forward to next year. It'll be easier next year. What else here? E-bike meetup. This is Active Transportation Month. So this past Saturday, there was an e-bike meetup at Snicket Park. About a dozen people came by. We had 5 different e-bikes there, 5 different electric bikes, different models, different makes, and people had the opportunity to get on them and test them out. So we had people zipping up and down the walkways over there. And I had one person come up to me today and say, well, I missed you. I came back and you guys were gone. I guess they went and took their dog home or something and came back and we'd left. So this coming Saturday, there'll be another one at the Seaside Center from 10 till 12. Again, we'll have probably 5 or 6 bikes there. Come on out and try them out. Some of the people who came were looking at, they wanted to buy one, but they didn't know what kind. Because we have all the different ones there, or a number of different ones with different drives and all different stuff that I understand it now, but it didn't make any sense to me at first. You can actually play with them and see what they do. Some of them have Boost, for example, if you're going up a hill, you can push a button and it starts you, it'll push you up the hill almost. You don't even have to pedal, where others don't. So there's different kinds of things you can look at. What else? Counselor, I think that's pretty much it. There's a number of other things with the district of Sechelt, but I'll leave those for now. I wanted to talk about the regional district and tomorrow's meeting. Tomorrow is an infrastructure meeting at the regional district. It's a small agenda. It's only about 120 pages, but there are a number of items on there. What? Small as 120?
A lot of reading.
That's okay. It was like 350 this week or something like that total. So number of items, regional organics collection. So it's coming back to the regional district to start looking at making some decisions around regional organics. It's also there's also a report on the lifespan and the options to extend the lifespan of the existing landfill. The existing landfill, they're estimating, has about 6.9 years left in it. Then the process, they're looking at the process for siting a new landfill. So given that we've only got 6.9 years left, how do we actually go about siting a new landfill? And they said there are 3 options that have come forward, and there'll be more information in the report. I'm just highlighting them here for you. You could put in a new landfill. In the last 10 years, there has been 1 new in the province of BC. In the last 25 years, 3 new. And so they said there's 3 ways to deal with this. You either have a new landfill, you take it to somebody else's landfill, or you look at waste to energy. So they're looking at starting to do the work around what are the options for us. The question we've all been asking about water. Do we limit growth due to our water supply deficit? Well, there's a report on that in the agenda tomorrow, so check that out. I'm not going to answer it here. You can check out the report. It's fairly long. Water metering program. Meters for Sechelt. Again, looking for a decision, a direction from the regional district directors. And the final one is around the transit annual operating agreement. So each year the BC Transit does an operating agreement with the regional district for the buses and the service. And what happens is the budget is passed at the regional district prior to the agreement actually coming forward, because their year ends don't mesh up. And what it's showing is that what they estimated was actually higher than what the actual costs are. So we'll actually have a little bit of a surplus. So good news. So check out that agenda. As I said, it's not long, but it's very meaty. So check it out and see what, and then come by or find out what the papers or the radio reports on what the decisions are. So that's my report. Let's move on to item number 12. 12.1 is release of items from closed meeting. This is on page 212 and 213. And I'd look for a motion to release these items as recommended. Councillor Toth moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. And then councillor correspondence. We have 3 items. I'd look for a motion to receive the correspondence. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Is there anything in there that we'd like to address? I think number 2 is acknowledging that we've completed the requirements for the Age-Friendly Communities program and received the final payout on the grant. No other items. Let's move to item 12.3, and this is RCMP statistics for April. And motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Any comments? This was the report, I believe, that was presented at the committee of the whole meeting, right? So we quizzed our staff sergeant at that meeting. So any staff emergency items going forward? No. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All in favor of adjournment? Thank you. And questions? Pam?